In the past, I theorised that by creating a species of humanoid fruit in Spore, I'd be able to surpass the human race. Introducing the pear. My experiment was initially a great success. My pears evolved at an unbelievable rate, conquering the world through music, friendship, and a little bit of religious conversion, but it's fine. The Church of the Holy Fruit Bowl was formed, and all fruits worldwide rejoiced, aside from bananas who were banned. Everything seemed to be going well, but when attempting to reach space, I realised I hadn't accounted for one major problem. Pears only have short arms, and, unable to control his spaceship, one brave pear came crashing back down to Earth. The crash caused disarray amongst pear communities, and after a load of bad PR, which of course stands for pear reputation, the bananas, who had previously been marginalised by the Church of the Holy Fruit Bowl, took their opportunity and decided to invade. Even the plums weren't safe, and after years of turmoil, the pear species devolved all the way back to creature stage, and were eventually made extinct. Aside from one. The very same pilot whose crash had started it all. Fruitius Maximus. And, using a time machine of his own invention, Fruitius has been able to teleport himself back several years to within the midst of the bananas occupation. With the help of famous detective Pearfessor Layton and a small group of other pears, Fruitius begins his journey for revenge. Having time travelled back, Fruitius explained the situation to Pearfessor Layton. After hearing his story, the Pearfessor decided to show Fruitius the remains of their most recent battle, to see if he could deduce anything from it. Yes, he thought. This seems to be a banana. Better taste to make sure. Yes, definitely a banana. Just for peace of mind though. Yes, definitely a banana. Not only did this mean that Fruitius was in the right time period, but it meant that bananas were nearby. All he had to do was find them and take them down. With this in mind, he set out in search of more information, and before long, he came across a local tribe of orangers. Having previously been members of the Church of the Holy Fruit Bowl, the orangers were willing to help, and they communicated all they knew to him through the medium of song. After hearing all of the horror stories these orangers had to offer, Fruitius realised something. He couldn't do this alone, and after equipping himself with some new short arms, he set out in search of some allies, stumbling first across a nest of plums. Perfect! Plums had always been strong supporters of pear kind, and Fruitius began to approach them peacefully. Suddenly though, another type of plum stormed out of the wilderness. A horrible mutated species, deformed by years of nuclear warfare. Fruitius was so terrified that he had to turn tail and run. But he had to try again. He thought it safer this time if he brought Pearfessor Layton with him, just for moral support if nothing else. And, checking the coast was clear, he set off towards the plums again. Same problem, different minute. The aggressive species of plums seemed to be guarding the plum's nest, and if Fruitius was going to reach the nice plums, they would have to get past him. The only option was to fight. Initially, Fruitius and the Pearfessor seemed to have the upper hand, but then another mutated plum jumped out of the bushes, and they were outmatched. It was all going horribly wrong. Could this be the end already? Fruitius knew what he had to do, and, leaving the Pearfessor painfully behind, he ran towards his time machine, and jumped back in time once more. Restarting from the beginning, he decided to approach the plums straight away, and now knowing where the aggressive plums were hiding, him and the Pearfessor were able to dispatch them with relative ease. Finally, he could begin to make allies. The plums thanked him for freeing them, and then proceeded to tell him of a shocking rumour. They'd heard whispers of a banana outpost just a little west from here. Fruitius felt nervous, but he knew he had to check it out, and without further ado, he set out and travelled directly west. Before long, he spotted something on the horizon, and all of his darkest suspicions were confirmed. Bananas. Upon setting sight on the bananas, him and the Pearfessor both lost their cool. They were so angry in fact that they couldn't hold themselves back, and began to attack the bananas right away. Immediately, the golfing combat ability was clear, and in a matter of moments, Fruitius was once again jumping back in time and restarting everything afresh. If that's how powerful the bananas were, then this was really bad news. Fruitius had two options. One was to try and evolve himself and the other pairs close enough to their previous stature that they could take the bananas head on. But in this world of mutated monsters, that would be a difficult task. The other option was to find an ally strong enough to do the dirty work for him. He settled on the second option, but after several hours of travelling, he still couldn't find a creature powerful enough. And as the rain began to pour, all seemed lost. That's when he saw them. The most majestic specimen he'd ever seen. It was a whole nest of long boys. They were so long, so beautiful, and yet they had such a menacing presence. This was the creature that would help them defeat the bananas. But what could just a lowly pair offer such a magnificent beast? There was no way they could befriend even a single longboy, particularly not as they were now. The process had become even more complicated. They would have to evolve and then befriend a creature to help them impress Longboy, who in turn would help them defeat the bananas. With this new plan in mind, the whole tribe of Pears decided to move out to a new headquarters, taking a plum with them as a team mascot. Hopefully, around here there would be some impressive species that even Longboy couldn't turn down. And, as luck would have it, the answer was only a few feet away. Monkeys. This was perfect. If there's one thing we all know about monkeys, it's that they're great dancers. With a monkey on the team, Longboy was bound to be won over. Both Pears and Plum sang their hearts out, and in no time, the monkeys were on side. Sadly, at this point, the Plum decided to depart, as his people needed him back home, but his contribution to the cause would never be forgotten. The Pears and Monkey went the opposite way, and thanks to the monkey's advice on facial grooming, Pears as a species evolved more and had now grown back their signature moustaches. All they had to do now was track down the Longboys again, and after taking directions from a bunch of mutated Pears, they found them. With a combination of the monkey's dancing and the Pears' charm, negotiations with the Longboys were going well. That is, until a banana bombing raid interrupted proceedings. During this pandemonium, surrounding mutated creatures began to attack, and tragically, and without warning, Pearfessor Layton was brutally killed. Fruitius was heartbroken. Pearfessor Layton had been his greatest friend ever since he time-travelled back from the future. How could he go on without his most trusted sidekick? Was this cause even worth it if more casualties like this one lay ahead? Fruitius was so sad that the game crashed. But after reloading the game, Pearfessor Layton was back and the day was saved. With the crew back together, they were able to finally befriend a Longboy. Longboy expanded Fruitius' mind by telling him all about Long Earth. Huh, crazy, I'd always thought it was flat. And although his long neck was so long that it blew about in the breeze, with Longboy in tow, they all decided it was finally time to fight the bananas again. This was the moment of truth. If they were to defeat the bananas, the time was now, and without hesitation, the team charged forwards with an all-out attack. Yet again, the battle started well, but the collective might of the bananas was too much power to handle. Their thick peel left them impervious to any damage. Fruitius and the team lost the fight, and he once again had to jump back in time. One thing was certain. If Fruitius couldn't get through the banana's thick peel, there was no way he would defeat them. So him and the other Pears decided they would get claws. Having witnessed Longboy tragically fall to the bananas, Fruitius now knew it was unfair to employ others into what was essentially a pair-orientated issue. And, thinking about this, he came up with a new idea. Even with their claws, Fruitius knew that his group of Pears weren't strong enough to beat a banana one-on-one. But what if there were Pears out there that were already much stronger? After all, it wasn't just plums that had been mutated. In fact, Fruitius had asked some mutated Pears for directions just a little earlier. It was decided. Fruitius would search the land to recruit more mutated Pears, and it was only a small bit of travelling later that he hit the jackpot, and came across the tallest and most intimidating looking Pears he'd ever seen. With one of these big boys on the team, there was no way they would lose, and after parting ways with the monkey in what was again an emotional farewell, the team recruited a four-legged Pear as well, and began to march in the bananas' direction. As they reached the banana hideout this time though, Fruitius decided they needed to be more tactical. Running in head first hadn't worked so far, and so they waited cautiously until one foolish banana separated himself from the bunch. Then they pounced. and before it knew it, the banana had been taken out by the ultimate pear wombo combo. More fruit punches followed, as bananas and pears scrapped for supremacy. Big Boy was doing some great work, but sadly, Forelegs was struggling, and the bananas, now full of potassium, were able to get the better of him. The fight wasn't over though, and Big Boy had the power of 10 pairs, maybe even 11 pairs at a push, and with Fruitius and Pearfessor Layton providing support, they were able to wipe out the rest of the bananas and end this horrible war. They had done it! The pears had won, and the world could be at peace again. But as Fruitius went to inspect the bodies... Yep, definitely banana. He found that one banana was carrying a note. He read it aloud, and what it said shocked him to his very core. Assignment for Banana Camp 14B. Hunt down and take care of pear sympathizers. This told Fruitius two things. On the one hand, this was clearly not the only banana encampment. In fact, by the sounds of it, there were at least 13 other encampments just in Sector B. He assumed the B stood for banana. There was some positives though. Hunt down the pear sympathizers. What did this mean? Whoever these pear sympathizers were, the bananas were clearly worried about them. Fruitius had to find them. They could be the key to taking down the banana empire. With the new mission in place, Fruitius returned to the other pears and they all moved out to find a new headquarters, which would let them scout further afield for these pear supporters. At the same time, now the battle was over, Fruitius wanted rid of his claws, so he experimented with a few other options. Maybe some crab hands so he could snip people with his crab hands, or maybe some huge talons. No, they were too scary. Not even pear sympathizers would approach them with those. He settled eventually on a pair of warm mittens, and he was sure that there was absolutely no way that having zero dexterity of his fingers would ever hinder him in the future. And with peace of mind and some very snug hands, Fruitius and Big Boy parted ways with tears in their eyes, and the pear tribe set out to find whoever it was that was on their side. Could it be these creatures? No, probably not. Could it be these handsome looking fellas? No, not them either. And then, something awful happened. Fruitius stumbled upon yet another banana encampment. Paralysed with fear, Fruitius thought this could be the end. But something was different. These bananas seemed to be able to dance. Very uncharacteristic for such a stuck-up and aggressive fruit. And what's more, when they approached, the bananas didn't attack. It couldn't be. Were these bananas really the pear sympathizers? This was a huge stroke of luck. Having friends on the inside of the Banana Empire could prove really useful going forwards, and after speaking to the leader of the group, a guy named Bananakin Skywalker, they formed an alliance, traded information, and readied themselves for tribal stage. According to Bananakin, the Banana Empire went much deeper than Fruitius had ever thought. Tribal stage was gonna be tough. They were about to move into a world of spears and flaming torches, and as such, each pair was equipped with a warrior's helmet, shoulder pads, and a grass skirt. The task ahead would be difficult, but there were two main things that gave Fruitius hope. For one, they had Bananakin now, a man on the inside who could act as a spy, and more importantly, Fruitius remembered the Brown Village. In his previous life, the Brown Village had always been there, to help pears through thick and thin. They gave them gifts, sang them songs. The Brown Village truly were the nicest village on the whole planet. Now that the pears were in tribal stage again, he was sure that the Brown Village would be willing to help them out. In fact, here they were now. No, it couldn't be. Impossible. Oh no. The Brown Village had been taken over by bananas.